Want to talk about today is the Robotaxi wars have officially launched. Today is a really big day. There was not only did Tesla make some announcements, but we also had Waymo make announcements. You had Zoox makes announcements, and even Luminar Technologies with their partner Volvo, they made announcements. Tesla, of course, uh, thank you to Sawyer, just told us today that Tesla received approval from the Arizona Department of Transportation, launching. So Tesla can now launch Robotaxi on public roads. They can legally run the paid autonomous ride-hailing service. And then earlier today, we heard that Robotaxi service now is officially gone wide to all iPhone users. So anybody with an iOS can download the app. You can ride hail in Bay Area or Austin. And then, yes, there will be Android. Tesla Yoda found another job posting for an Android engineer for the Robotaxi app. That should come hopefully soon. And then I think there's also signals that Tesla likely increase the number of robotaxis available. People are reporting in Austin much less shorter wait times. Waymo announced today that they're introducing fully autonomous driving in 5 new cities. They're starting with Miami today, and then they'll introduce Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Orlando just over the coming weeks. Looks like they're going forward. A week or two ago, they announced that they have 2,500 vehicles, 100 in Austin. And so maybe these guys, they'll just be able to do hundreds, maybe 1,000, but hundreds per city is more likely yet. Zoox also made an announcement. They're expanding to San Francisco. Free rides, just like they have in Las Vegas. But, they've been testing in San Francisco for, I think, since 2017. It's still test bed. I don't know how big of a geography it is, but they made that announcement. And then, I'm not surprised to most of us here, but Luminar Technologies, they're the big maker of LiDAR. They have been already warning of going bankrupt. And then today, Volvo announced that they're going to drop Luminar. And that's all the things that are happening right now. Let's start with you, Jeff. Which one of these are you most excited about? Obviously, the Tesla ones, right?
Well, I mean, Tesla is, by opening this up, my guess is a lot of cars have been added to the network. They now see performance in terms of ride quality. Obviously, accident interventions are to a level where they can basically, from an operational perspective, you think about an operation, you have a development aspect, so that's done all in the labs inside of Tesla, and then you have this new product ramp up period, which is what they've been doing the last 5 or so months in Austin and the Bay Area, which is you have a specialized, dedicated team. You've got smaller quantities, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to transition from the development environment to the production environment, and you're taking rides for money. And so it's happening. And that's been happening for the last several months. Now, by opening it up, it looks like they're taking Austin and the Bay Area. Now, the Bay Area, they obviously have to get through their some additional regulatory requirements to take the safety rider out of the driver's seat, and same in Austin. But I sound like a broken record. I think it's appropriate to take these precautions. Tesla has tremendous amounts of capital and assets. And what you don't want to do at this early stage is cause a problem. So I believe they're transitioning to Austin and the Bay Area to a production environment. So that's hire all these teams. Everybody's been posting about all the different requisitions being posted. And I believe that this has been a convergence of the performance of the system, the FSD, and this convergence of hiring these operational teams. And what do these cars do? Where do they go when they're not being driven? So I believe this convergence is happening. Austin and the Bay Area are being converted to a production environment, which I believe is now going to allow this new product transition team working on FSD to now bring up new product environments in these new cities that we've seen all the requisitions posted. So whether it's going to be the New York area, Miami, Atlanta, Houston, all the we just saw what happened today with Arizona and Nevada. So we have all these different locales where they've been hiring people, and I believe now those are going to transfer out of the quote unquote lab and hiring a few people into let's ramp it up. Let's get safety riders in there. Let's get a couple of dozen cars out in each of the. And so I believe those announcements are forthcoming.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising, I think, for me that they opened it up in Austin, and that because I thought that they should at least get 14.1.7 or the latest version out there, 14.2, and then switch it over to the non, no safety driver before you open it up. How many cars do you think that they will have in Austin at this point?
We don't know. I mean, they may. If I'm Tesla, like I don't, and if I'm to the point where, first off, we don't know what version's in the Robotaxi. They that could be running a version that's a couple months ahead of what we have in our vehicles, and I think Elon has said that. So, and then if I'm Tesla, I don't have a big date or some big ceremony where I'm breaking a champagne bottle over a Robotaxi and saying there's no more safety riders. If I'm Tesla, I just start peeling them out. And I take the most stable vehicles that have done the most trips, have had no issues. Not that I'm saying there's a hardware dependency, but all right, boom. And maybe they do it relative to a service area that's right around where their epicenter is in Austin. And I would just start peeling them out of cars. I wouldn't have some mass event where they're all out of all the cars on one day. It's all of a sudden you'll see cars that start operating without a person. So I believe that's what's happening. And like I said, I think Tesla, I know Tesla has access to data that says that they're confident. Remember this, when you go to open this up, you're adding a bunch of cars. And when you add cars, you add the probability of an incident occurring. And Tesla knows what kind of scrutiny their name is in the press. And if there's any issue, what happens. But what's nice is even these, 4 to 7 incidents, whatever's occurred, in a parking lot or whatever, these are small things at low speeds that aren't causing any problems or any real issues for people. Like the safety element of automated driving is really delivering here.
Thanks, Jeff. And then Yoda, you posted the job opening for a Android developer for the Robotaxi app. Obviously, they already have Android. They have a Tesla app. Why are they hiring an Android developer? Poor Alexandra can't do ride hailing until she gets Android, so she's a little upset. What do you think, Yoda? How long is it going to take?
Well, the job posting for the Android developer isn't new, and frankly, I'm surprised it's taken them so long to find Android developers. But I think for those who has developed app before, work with developers, it's very common that for version 1 or for beta, you start with iOS just so that you can really understand the bugs, get the UAT right, and then once you release that version 1. You can then move on to Android, and then from there on, version 2, 3, 4, you can certainly do things in much more parallel, fashion. So, yeah, I think this is okay. The iOS system, sorry, Alexandra, but it's big enough it's big enough pond for them to get the beta users. And now, of course, expanding to really inviting, all you users, and yeah, hopefully Android will be around the corner. I think, Jeff, to your point earlier, I think rather than removing the safety driver or the what they're called AI safety operators now, there is a path for them to kind of keep those guys in the car and just start adding vehicles without them and see what happens to the stats. So for example, for easy math, let's say there are 100 robotaxis operating in Austin right now, just for easy math. Rather than taking humans out, they should just start adding cars without the driver, and okay, you got five cars now in there without drivers.
Mm.
What happens to the stats? 10, what happens? Oh, it's now 50%. What happens? And I think scale from there. And then yeah, of course you can then, take them out later.
It actually makes sense, because then you can also just use, for those cars that don't have any human in it, you can have them just go to the safer areas, the more tried and true areas.
I think so. I think that way you get a bit of a control and test going on, so that you still have statistically significant data on those vehicles, with humans, and then those without, which you can add at will. They don't have to call out Jaguar for more vehicles, do they now?
Yeah, I don't think it's about safety. I think it's about just public perception. Because if an accident does occur, they can say, "Oh, we've been already running it, for how many miles and how many hours and days and so forth." Okay, so thank you, guys. So Omar, we were talking about the Robotaxi wars. We've covered, or we started talking about the expansion to all iPhone users. And of course, we haven't yet discussed the approval from Arizona Department of Transportation. And then we'll cover later Waymo, Zoox, and Luminar. So what's your thoughts about the Arizona Department of Transportation launch and the things you might have just caught as you jumped in?
Yeah, Tesla did announce at the shareholder meeting that they were going to be coming to, I think, Phoenix and maybe one other city in Arizona. So it's not surprising. I think they're definitely in expansion mode now that FSD 14 is out. The results kind of speak for themselves. They're letting in new users. They definitely do need to get an Android version out. I think we're going to be hearing about a lot of new cities coming online in the coming months. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what you would expect, seeing them start to actually deploy in the cities that they listed on the shareholder meeting day.
And then, of course, we're expecting, right, that in Arizona it's going to be humans, supervised riding first, drivers first, and then he said 3 months of that likely, and then they might remove it, or wait, supervise first and then become a safety passenger. Is that what you're expecting in Arizona?
I mean, somebody supervising from the driver's seat or the passenger seat is really, kind of the same thing. I don't think there's any difference there. They want to actually deploy without any driver or safety monitor in the car in all their markets. And with FSD 14, that's a lot easier to do in any market. But this is pretty much the standard playbook. You've seen, for example, Waymo. They've been operating in Miami for several months with a human driver, and they're now going to start to deploy without a driver. So first you deploy with the human supervising. Human looks everything over, make sure it's okay, make sure all the sort of local peculiarities of the area are handled well by the software. The software may be tuned as necessary. And then once you get the data that the humans in the car aren't doing anything, they're never intervening, well, then you might as well just remove them. So I think that's kind of the playbook we're going to see where a new city launches. They've got supervision, whether it's in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, depending on what regulation allows. They'll look at the data they get and then remove that person when the time comes. So I think the first market where we're going to see the safety monitor removed is going to be Austin. And then we should see them apply for the necessary permits in California and Arizona and all of their other markets as well.
Are you guys all still on track with what Elon said that by the end of this year? I mean, he keeps changing it, right? Initially 50% of the market, and then it became 8 to 10 cities. It's already mid-November. Anything in that concern you guys, or not really, because they can always do it at the last month?
Well, we're running out of year. So if they're going to launch something, they should probably go ahead and do it. But I mean, I'm not too concerned with how many cities they have by the end of the year. As long as they're sort of moving in the right direction, I'm sure they're expanding as fast as they can. He tends to set targets that are pretty optimistic, pretty aggressive. Before it was 10 cities by the end of the year. It was 50% of the US population by the end of the year. So, I mean, if they launch 1 or 2 markets before the end of the quarter, I would be pretty impressed by that.
Anybody else? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think they really just to by the end of the year launch in one city. In fact, just part of one city where they could get cars operating without the AI safety operator, and that's proof enough for me, because at that point it's just copy and paste the playbook. It's worth noting that they've actually changed the vehicle operator title a bunch of times. In fact, when they did it for kind of the greater Boston area, I think the HR person there didn't get the memo that the West Coast got, and so they had to revise the job description, the title. And I think the reason why they've now consolidated that as the AI safety driver are two reasons why to have AI. One, to have AI in there, but secondly, it was important for them to not have whether the person is sitting in the passenger or the driver's side be that important, and just kind of call them one thing. And I think this gives me a bit of a signal that they're really ready to scale in much more markets.
That's very interesting. Good call out there, Yoda. I saw that you've made some posts. You keep repeating, I think, the post, which is this a signal to you. The signal is when they remove the safety passenger, but a lot of people are kind of saying that that's not as big of signal anymore. You do think that is it?
I think so. I think even Elon mentioned it himself on the AGM. The problem today is that as the driver using FSD, we're almost like decoys. Where if you look at the cars from the outside, you think we're driving, but we're really not. And so I think it's kind of fooling everyone from pedestrians to other drivers on the road. So it's really about getting us to that point of really removing that first safety driver in Austin. And as I mentioned, that is the moment where the market will realize it, the analysts will realize it, and then you should see a bit of a step change in the stock price from there.
Okay, you still think it's a signal? Who here is actually using 14.1.7? I know Omar. Anybody else? Jeff, did you get it? Yeah. And tell me what you guys what you're experiencing so far. Has it pretty well now back better than 13 in terms of comfort? Is there any issues that you saw that popped up?
I mean, there's still some issues, but it is. I have an interesting situation because I got a new X. So the new X is on 13.2.9 and the Cybertruck's on 14.1.7. And I mean, those two releases, the more and more I put them side by side, the more and more they drive meaningfully different. The 14.1 is more assertive. You obviously have more driver profiles. And it seems to be able to maneuver and deal with situations like 13.2.9 can't even get out of the curve around my garage without having to do a bunch of different things, whereas 14.1 is more assertive and just makes the right move and goes. The 14 series backs into my garage spot. 13.2.9 just stops on the driveway. So there's a lot of things going on in terms of capability, ride comfort, and performance in 14.1. The downside is obviously there's some sensitivity and detuning that just needs to be adjusted with objects. It's sensing more objects. It's literally driving around roadkill now, and with that added sensitivity, it's seeing things, leaves or whatever, and you have to deal with those things. But I really think that this was a meaningful. I'm trying to compare the differences. To me, this is even a bigger jump than version 12 to the first 13 release. This first 14 release is just, it was really special. again, it's not without its issues, but 1417, to me, is meaningfully different, especially having the two vehicles side by side on 1329.
But is the 1.7 better than the, I can't remember now, 1.2 or whatever it was before?
1.4.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're adding, I mean, for the Cybertruck, they're adding functionality that wasn't there before. But I'm between 1414 and 7, I'm seeing a little bit better ride comfort and dealing with, issues like leaves and so forth and things like that.
Okay.
But there's still some things that they're going to iron out. That's probably for 14.2.
Yeah. And then Omar, what's your thoughts on 1.7? Are we going to see 14.2 before the end of the year? End of the month, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty damn near perfect.
Yep.
There's still some issues where, like, and I drove from California to Texas and from San Francisco, LA to San Francisco and back. There's, maybe occasionally a moment where it kind of breaks or something and you're kind of startled. But it's dramatically improved from earlier versions of 14. They've really smoothed it out. It's almost at the level of 13 now. I think with 14.2, they're going to be there for sure. But honestly, I think in their major markets of Robotaxi service, Austin and the Bay Area, you could probably deploy this without a safety monitor.
Mhm.
And I think it would crash less than a human. It is just like Jeff said, you see it avoiding roadkill, you see it avoiding road debris, and doing it before you even notice those things. A lot of times you're like, oh, why is it swerving? Oh, okay. There's a piece of something in the road or there's some roadkill in the road. And it's just avoiding it before I even saw it there. So this is the technical foundation for them to remove the safety monitors. I think that they haven't done it yet is just a matter of precaution and validation. But I have no doubt that whether it's 1417 or 1418 or 14.2, this model sets up the technical foundation for them to safely remove the safety monitor in the car.
Oh, thank you for that. So I needed to get an update on that. I haven't had it yet. So if for
I mean, I could gush about it for a long time. With it driving me from California to Texas and back and San Francisco and back, especially on the Cybertruck, it really is just so nice. But I'll spare the space because I could go on for a while about how good it is.
Well, that's good. And then Yoda, you had a post and you said that the Robotaxi, you think that Robotaxi is going to come to these 12 cities. You listed them out, right? Arizona's Tempe, Arizona. California's LA, San Francisco. You got Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Florida. Chicago, Peabody, which is Greater Boston, Henderson, Las Vegas, and then Houston, Dallas, and Austin. Where did you get this list from?
Yeah, those 12 cities are from where they are hiring the role of AI safety operator. So I think that role is a really good indication of where they're going to be launching.
Okay, and then if I just took a look at Texas and Arizona, you can easily, I mean, because it's a state's already approved kind of thing. You got Houston, Dallas, and Austin, and then you can add Tempe, right? How come they don't have San Antonio there? Interesting. And the reason I'm asking that is because Waymo today announced that they're launching now in Miami today, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Orlando in the coming weeks. These other 4 cities. And I think that means that there's now going to be 10 cities in just a few more weeks. You guys want to comment on that?
Well, I think the exact cities, I think we've even seen like New York at one time. So I think the actual rollout is not going to be super smooth. There could be the case of 2-step forward, 1 step back happening. And there could be delays with certain cities or state. And I really see it not being just a homogeneous process. There's going to be, city states which are much more kind of, lenient and kind of pro tests of autonomous vehicles, and I think that's okay. I think there is enough TAM out there for, Tesla to follow the footsteps of kind of Waymo, in terms of the regulatory approval for them to get enough market share. Initially, it's really about perfecting the service anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree with that. Hey, Sat, you want to add into the conversation we've been having?
Yeah, I also wanted to say that it's not just that the V14 is like significantly better, but even the previous versions are really good. At least where I was driving in LA, I was on V12 with my Model Y, and under heavy rain, like I couldn't see 2 car lengths in front of me, and only when like another vehicle splashed entire loads of water onto it, that was the only time I had a disengagement. But the entire time, if it wasn't for that, under the heavy rain, it worked perfectly fine on the highways and where I was going. So even the ones that aren't the V14, the latest and greatest, you still have amazing capabilities with it. And the other thing that I want to point out is like testing is happening in other markets, like even in Japan. They're hiring a lot of people. They have a lot of job postings going off for what Tesla Toyota is saying, not necessarily on Robotaxi, but on FSD. So the expansion of FSD is also happening as well. So the expansion of FSD in general, supervised and unsupervised, is expanding. So that part of the business will eventually become much bigger. So it's not just the fact that in the US we have V14, it's that the other markets are spreading and starting to accept FSD.
Yeah, I think I forgot that news, which is Israel, right? And something happened with FSD. It's very imminent, being approved there.
Yeah, Korea is also one.
It's amazing. And then anybody else want to comment on the Waymo? They're moving fast. Just by listening to other announcements in the last weeks, they want to make sound like that they're really, really making inroads.
Yeah, I find it interesting that it took them like more than a decade to be in 2 cities. And then as robotaxis become more eminent and they know that Tesla was going to move, and they did, and they expand faster. Now Waymo's like moving 10 times faster than before. So competition is really healthy for any market.
I guess it depends on when they say we're going to be in 5 cities, but it's about how many cars are you going to have in those cities. At least though, if it's fully autonomous driving, that means they've really pushed the legislation to be approved. And so makes it much easier for Tesla.
Yeah, so Waymo's in 6 cities now: LA, San Francisco, Phoenix, Austin, Atlanta, and Miami.
As of today.
So as of today, yeah. So that's exciting. There's a bunch of new cities they want to add as well. But Miami's a great city. It definitely has some challenging aspects to it. People can drive kind of crazy there. So it's great that service is going to be available in Miami. I think pretty much every city they add on is good news for the self-driving industry in general. Elon even kind of called out and thanked them because they've honestly made it a lot easier to expand a robotaxi. They've created regulatory frameworks in many cases where none existed in a lot of these states. So I think that's a good thing. And I think that Tesla's well equipped to compete with them. There have also been some other major advancements that Waymo has made, particularly driving on the highway and expanding the service in San Francisco to cover more of the South Bay, more of the peninsula, which Tesla had been doing a good job of. They've got the East Bay and San Francisco and the peninsula. So Waymo's still at a fraction of that, but that's an exciting expansion for people who live in that area. One thing that I will say, though, is I've noticed they tend to announce things and people start congratulating them on it before they've really truly gone live. So, for example, with the highway access, I think this is huge for particularly Los Angeles, but also the Bay Area, because you can reduce the travel times as much as 50% going on the highway instead of the city streets. So this is a big difference. But when I went onto the Waymo app and wanted to call one of these rides, they said, okay, well, join our highway wait list and we'll let you in within a few weeks. So based on their social media posts, I thought it was launched, but then as you kind of actually go in the app and try it, you realize that A, they've had a large period of testing with employees. B, now that they're launching to the public, they've still got a wait list, and it's going to be at least a few more weeks before they roll it out. I have no doubt they will roll it out, and I will get access to it and be able to try it probably before the end of the year. But I think it gives you a sense of kind of how they're thinking about this. They're approaching it very cautiously, as they do with everything. But yeah, that was a major, major handicap of theirs, that they couldn't go on the highway with customers. And it's going to make the service a lot better if that changes in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I still think there's a cap in how fast they will drive in the highway,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah, I
fair.
think Waymo
Yeah.
can compete with Tesla in terms of the number of cities, the number of announcements. That all sounds great on the surface, but what it comes down to at the end of the day is how fast it can scale. And again, are they going to call up Jaguar, Lexus, whoever it is that they partner with, to just pump out more vehicles?
Hyundai and Zeekr.
Hyundai and Zeekr. So, like, if let's just say, at the extreme, let's say Tesla has expanded to 1 million vehicles. Where are they going to get that, from all those manufacturers? And with the LiDAR on board, the unit cost on those vehicles means that they're burning more cash per vehicle. So it's much like when Ford and GM tries to compete. They can have more models of EVs, but as they produce more units, they're actually bleeding money.
Hey, so what do you guys think about Zoox today? Everybody's making announcements today. So Zoox said that they are now live in San Francisco, but it's a Zoox Explorer program. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like one of those. It's free, and they're just doing kind of a small loop, maybe. But they said it is point to point in the heart of the city. Most of Mission, Soma, and Design District. It is free. They're not charging anybody. Zoox, of course, is funded by Amazon, and they have one of the only autonomous first built robotaxi that's built from the ground up, no steering wheel or pedals. I think it looks great, but it's still just being tested, right? And the interesting stat here or information is that they've been testing in San Francisco since 2017. So, it just sounds like yet another announcement that, we are in Las Vegas, but actually it's just a little tiny loop that they're doing. Yes, they can do that. You can also do that in Disneyland. Now they're doing it in San Fran. We'll see if that's good. Anybody have any thoughts on what Zoox announced today?
I think for me, it's just how many Zoox can Zoox produce or Amazon manufacture a quarter. Are we talking about 300,000?
Well, they're building a factory where they announce it's 10,000 per year capacity.
But Tesla is printing robotaxis at 2 million a year.
Yeah. Omar, were you going to say something, Omar?
Yeah, sorry. So, Tesla's kind of getting rid of their wait list today. And Zoox, on the other hand, is kind of starting to take people off their wait list. So it kind of just shows you where they are compared to Waymo and Tesla. They're still kind of soft launching their rideshare service with certain people off the wait list. Waymo and Tesla are now open to the public. So they're a bit behind, I think, from a technology and deployment perspective. But what I do really like about them is their vehicle. It doesn't have a steering wheel. It doesn't have any pedals. It's just kind of two rows facing each other. The vehicle doesn't have a front or a back. Instead of making a 3-point turn, it just starts driving in the other direction. So I think that's kind of innovative, but also kind of a limiter, right? Because you're limited by how many vehicles you can make. So they're an interesting company. I would describe them as having kind of a Waymo-like approach, and I'm excited to give them a try in Las Vegas the next time I'm there. But, they've definitely got some catching up to do compared to players like Waymo and Tesla.
We have no idea how good their AI is. I mean, certainly right now we're watching it do loops. But it's got LiDAR, still that same model, so we don't know how good it is. Speaking about LiDAR, so Luminar Technologies used to be like one of the big players in LiDAR, and then they're announcing they're on their way to bankruptcy. They've been warning investors that they might have to declare bankruptcy. And today, their largest customer, Volvo, they announced that they're separating away from Luminar. They decided to remove the LiDAR sensor. They're going to discontinue their relationship with them. They don't want they're trying to limit the company's supply chain risk exposure, and it's a direct result of Luminar's failure to meet its contractual obligations. I don't know what that all means, but yeah, not good for Luminar. It's a 5-year contract that Volvo just canceled. So I've been telling people that, I think it was Brian Wang did was it Brian Wang and also Larry Goldberg about a year ago did a deep dive on LiDAR vendors, and like 200 plus LiDAR vendors, and half of them is already gone bankrupt. And then the very telling sign is founders of many of these LiDAR companies, when they decide to leave that company, they start a new company. It isn't LiDAR based, it's vision based. So just tells you something. If it really was the answer to everything, why wouldn't they have restarted a new LiDAR company? But yeah, unfortunately, Luminar's on its way out. Volvo, I don't know what it means when they say they've decided to remove the LiDAR sensor from AX90 and ES90 cars. Does that mean that they're just going to go vision only? I don't know.
Well, they're going to go nothing only. That's really the solution because their technology depended on the LiDAR, but they can't get the LiDAR anymore because the company's going bankrupt. Here's a problem you're not going to see in the Robotaxi supply chain. Hey, our LiDAR supplier is going bankrupt. We can't continue production. We have to take it out of the cars. Oh, wait a minute. We don't have a LiDAR supplier. It doesn't matter if anyone goes bankrupt because we're not buying these. Except Tesla was actually the number one Luminar customer, believe it or not. They were buying these units to sort of validate some of their pure vision data. So I guess that could be a little bit of a problem for them, but I'm sure they can just buy from one of the other suppliers. But yeah, this story is really kind of funny the more you dig into it. I mean, I shouldn't say funny. Maybe I should say it's sad. But Volvo was an investor in Luminar. Think about how bad things have to be for you to release a statement like this on a company that you actually own, that you're actually an investor in. They don't even care about that stake anymore. They're like, this is just a disaster. And Luminar is now suing Volvo for removing these units from their car. You might remember that video with Mark Rober where he said Tesla Pure Vision doesn't work. You need Luminar LiDAR. Well, now we know why that video came out. It's because Luminar was on the verge of bankruptcy, and they have fired their CEO a few months ago due to, quote, an ethics investigation. They're under investigation from the SEC. They've now defaulted on their debt and are headed into bankruptcy. I mean, I can't imagine what could happen that would be worse. They're now trying to sell the company to somebody, including possibly their billionaire founder, which, they just fired due to an ethics investigation. It's not a good situation where your investor and your number one company has kicked you out. They've said this is because these guys have failed to deliver. And yeah, it just kind of highlights that the LiDAR supply chain is not there. When you're building on top of the camera supply chain, which, these guys ship what? How many cameras in smartphones and computers, right? There is a strong, broad, diverse supply chain for those types of cameras, right? It's a pretty stark contrast to the situation in the LiDAR industry, where a lot of these LiDAR companies came out of the 2020 SPAC boom, where they just loaded all these dog shit SPACs onto retail investors and they lost like 90% of their money. Luminar was one of those. So yeah, it's really another highlight of why building on vision matters, not just for all the technical reasons we talk about, but it also just keeps the supply chain simple and strong.
Nice. Great information there, Omar. Thank you for that. You got good memory. You remember it all. You lived through it all. Oh boy, if you just repeat all the things that happened when everybody said LiDAR, LiDAR, LiDAR. We'll keep hearing it. We still do keep hearing it. But that hopefully that debate will be ended soon.